So let's just think about this for a second. How does a brand new, maybe even revolutionary idea actually survive when it feels like the whole world is dead set against it? Well, we're going to dive right into that story. We're looking at early Makkah, where the message of Islam faced a full-on, organized campaign, one that was designed to completely snuff it out before it could ever get going. Okay, so our story kicks off in Makkah. You've got the powerful Quraysh tribe. They're the ones in charge, the leaders of society. And they saw the Prophet Muhammad's message as way more than just a new religion. To them, it was a direct threat to their power, their traditions, their whole way of life, really. So they knew they had to do something. So what's their first move? They go straight for the jugular, targeting the Prophet's most important protector, his uncle, Abu Talib. Now, Abu Talib was a big deal, the leader of their clan. And here's the thing, he hadn't actually converted to Islam, but he protected his nephew out of pure family loyalty. The Quraysh figured, hey, if we can just peel away that tribal protection, the Prophet will be left totally exposed. So Abu Talib goes to his nephew and lays out the pressure from the Quraysh. And the Prophet's response? It's just so powerful and absolute. He basically says it would be easier for someone to reach up and light a torch from the sun than for him to stop his mission. The message was crystal clear, for Abu Talib and for the Quraysh. This is not up for negotiation, period. Right. So after that total refusal, the Quraysh start getting desperate. They go back to Abu Talib, but this time, it's not just about political pressure. They come with this completely unthinkable, almost pathetic proposal that just shows you how far they were willing to go. And this next move, it just shows you their twisted logic. They offer Abu Talib one of their best and strongest young men, a guy named Umara, to adopt as his own son. And in exchange, they demand he hand over his nephew, Muhammad, so they can kill him. I mean, just think about that. A literal life-for-life trait. Abu Talib's reaction was, as you can imagine, pure outrage. His reply just cuts right to the heart of how monstrous their offer was. You give me your son to raise while I give you my son to kill? Never. I mean, you can just feel the fury. This showed his loyalty was unbreakable, and it meant their direct approach had completely, utterly failed. Okay, so since they couldn't break his personal support system, the Quraysh totally switched gears. They decided, all right, private threats aren't working, let's go public. They planned a full-blown PR war, a smear campaign designed to poison public opinion against him. And the guy they put in charge of this whole operation was al-Walid ibn al-Mughira, a really respected elder. Their target audience? It was perfect. All the pilgrims coming from all over Arabia for the annual Hajj. The goal was simple but clever. Come up with one single unified lie. If everyone in Makkah is telling the exact same story, the visitors are bound to believe it, right? And what's so wild is how they went about it. Al-Walid basically held a strategy session with the other chiefs. They literally workshopped the slander. What if we call him a soothsayer? Nah, he said, his speech is too clear. Okay, how about a madman? Nope, he doesn't act like one. A poet? No way. Anyone who knows poetry can tell this is something else entirely. He shot down all their ideas until he landed on the one he thought would stick the most. Magician. And why magician? Because it explained why families were being divided, as some members accepted Islam. It was the perfect insidious label. But while this war of words was being cooked up, a completely different kind of support was starting to show up. It wasn't just about political protection anymore. Now, fierce and very physical loyalty was entering the picture, and it came from another one of his powerful uncles. And this brings us to Hamzah. Now, Hamzah was a force to be reckoned with, a famous hunter, a tough warrior. So one day, he's coming back from a hunt, and he hears that one of the Prophet's biggest enemies, a chief named Abu Jahl, had just publicly and viciously cursed his nephew. Hamzah was a man of action, and he was absolutely livid. He didn't sit around and think about it. He marched straight to the Kaaba, where Abu Jahl was sitting with all the other leaders, walked right up to him, and bam, cracked him on the head with his bow, hard. We're talking about a public beatdown that reportedly fractured his skull. But what came next was even more powerful than the physical blow. Hamzah stood over him and made this stunning public declaration. Do you curse him while I am on his religion? Wow. This was a game changer. Not only did he physically defend his nephew in front of everyone, but he also announced his own conversion to Islam. Suddenly, one of Makkah's most feared warriors was on the side of the Muslims. Abu Jahl was totally humiliated, and you can bet the power dynamics in that city shifted in that very moment. Now here is where the story gets really, really interesting. Because while the Quraysh were trying to project this image of a united front, behind the scenes there were some deep cracks forming. And the biggest crack was within the architect of the whole smear campaign himself. Yeah, the contrast is just staggering. Publicly, al-Walid is the guy running the whole "he's a magician" campaign. But in private, he couldn't deny the power of the verses he was hearing. He actually admitted to others, by Allah, his speech is wonderful. It shows this massive internal conflict he was having. And you can really see his internal struggle in how he described the Quran. He used this incredible metaphor, saying its roots were strong like a palm tree and its branches were full of fruit. I mean, come on, that's not how you talk about something that you think is just cheap magic. He knew it had depth, beauty, and truth to it, even as he was trying to tear it down in public. And then, unbelievably, his whole plot and his internal struggle were called out in a divine revelation. Verses of the Quran came down that described his situation perfectly. A man who was given so much, who heard the truth, who thought and plotted, and then proudly turned his back on it, calling it magic from that of old. It was like a direct, divine commentary on exactly what he was doing. So here's the beautiful irony in all of this. The entire point of the smear campaign was to scare people off, right? To stop the message dead in its tracks. But for a lot of sharp, open-minded people, it did the exact opposite. All the noise, all the controversy, it just made them curious. It made them think, I need to check this out for myself. And you see this pattern play out over and over again with different people. Take Dimad. He was a healer. He hears the madman rumor and travels to Makkah thinking he can offer a cure. Or Amr ibn Abasa. He hears whispers about a man with significant news and decides he has to meet him. You have Abu Dar, who sends his brother first and then goes himself. And then there's al-Hushayn, who was actually sent by the Quraysh to go and debate the Prophet. And in every single one of these stories, the slander was just the starting point. It's what got them in the door. When Dimad actually met the Prophet and heard him speak, he was just blown away. He said, "I've heard soothsayers, magicians, and poets, but I have never heard anything like these words." You see, a direct encounter with the message totally bypassed all the propaganda. Al-Hussein, the guy sent to argue, he converted right there on the spot. Now, speaking up for the truth back then was seriously dangerous. After Abu Dhar became a Muslim, he shouted it out loud in Mecca and was beaten almost to death for it. He was only saved when another of the Prophet's uncles, al-Abbas, stepped in. But here's the genius part. Al-Abbas didn't appeal to their sense of morality. He appealed to their wallets. He reminded the Quraysh that their main trade route to Syria ran right through Abu Dhar's tribal lands. Harming him could be a financial disaster. It was just a brilliant, pragmatic move that saved his life. And so, we come to the grand irony of this whole thing. The Quraysh's sophisticated war of words, their carefully crafted, unified lie, their massive public smear campaign, it all just completely backfired. All it did was create a buzz. It drove the truth seekers to look past the slander and find the truth for themselves. Their attempt to build a wall around the message just ended up creating a bunch of doors for people to walk right through. You know, this whole story leaves us with a really powerful question for our own lives, doesn't it? We live in an age of constant noise, of information overload, where it feels like every idea is under attack from somewhere. So the question is, how do we become seekers of truth? How do we learn to cut through all that noise and investigate for ourselves, instead of just swallowing the labels everyone else is trying to feed us?